Hello fellow Albertans, I'm Len Skowronski, leader of the Alberta Social Credit Party. Through this video, I hope to inform you about a crucial issue that could mean trillions of dollars to Albertans. We are losing a huge amount of our oil sands wealth by exporting bitumen instead of upgraded synthetic crude oil. Currently, $25 million of added value is being lost every day. It seems that the petroleum industry and our provincial and federal governments are quite content with this added value being realized in the USA instead of in Alberta. The Alberta Social Credit Party is determined that this seepage of our wealth must be stopped. On November 29, 2011, the party held a demonstration in front of the Alberta Legislature Building to alert our government and Albertans about this critical situation requiring immediate action. We invited newspapers, radio, and TV to report this event so that the word would get out to Albertans. The mayors and councillors of the communities that would benefit directly from additional bitumen upgrading were asked to send participants to the demonstration. Nobody came. We are very concerned and disappointed about the complacency of the media and municipal governments regarding this issue. During the demonstration, I gave a speech detailing the potential wealth of the oil sands and how much we are losing and will lose in the future if we do not change our course. I also described how Albertans could take control of this situation and realize full value for our oil sands. The following presentation is based on the contents of this speech. I offer it to you in lieu of the media's failure to disseminate this information. Thank you.
Let's get full value for our oil sands. Export synthetic crude oil, not bitumen. You often hear from government ministers and industry executives that Albertans do not have the money to develop our resources. This is not true. Money does not have any value on its own. It is a means of helping people trade goods and services. It only has value when it is traded for goods or services. In modern economies, enough money must be available to facilitate the transactions needed to provide the people in a community the goods and services they need for a good standard of living. The amount of money needed to achieve this goal must be determined and supplied by a central source that has the good of the whole community as its mandate. This money should be provided to the members of the community with a small surcharge for this service. No additional funds or profit should be expected for this service, for it does not provide any of the goods and services essential to the community needs. The Bank of Canada was established to be this central source in Canada. Unfortunately, the creation and distribution of money has slipped to the private banks. Individuals and the federal, provincial, and municipal governments are paying billions of dollars in interest to these banks for a service that deserves only a small surcharge. These banks are making huge profits, even during our recession, which are distributed to shareholders, many of whom are not even Canadian. The Bank of Canada should recover its control of the money supply. It should allow the private banks to function as distribution utilities with regulated service charges and profit margins. Unfortunately, vested interests in the Eastern control banks make achieving this goal highly unlikely. But we Albertans can lead the way. We can return the Alberta Treasury Branch to the mandate given by the Social Credit Government of 1935 to 1971. That is, to provide the capital needed by Albertans to establish a thriving economy. It can function as the Bank of Alberta, giving us economic independence. We should make the Alberta Treasury Branch the economic engine of Alberta's economy. By statute, the Bank of Canada is required to give no-interest loans to the provinces. We will demand this service even though none of the provinces are receiving this advantage over the private banks. If we are not able to convince the federal government and the Bank of Canada to take this step, then the Alberta Treasury Branch will take loans from the Bank of Canada at the prime rate, as do the private banks. This will still give Albertans a huge competitive advantage, for they will only be paying prime and a small operation surcharge, as opposed to the private banks' prime plus many percentage points. These prime plus rates always provide for large shareholder dividends and huge executive salaries and bonuses. Alberta can use its natural resources as collateral to create the credit needed by Albertans. Just consider one segment of these resources. There are an estimated 1.5 to 1.8 trillion barrels of oil in our oil sands. At the current base price of $100 per barrel, the oil sands are worth at least $150 trillion. This is 586 times Alberta's 2010 GDP of $256 billion. This means that income from the oil sands could provide all the money needed to run Alberta's economy at the current level for 586 years. Unfortunately, under the current regime, we will not be keeping enough of this wealth. This is due to not achieving full value for the end product. Production of oil from the oil sands is a two-step process. First, sand is removed to produce a gooey substance called bitumen. Then the bitumen is upgraded to produce an equivalent to conventional crude oil, which is called synthetic crude oil. This second step requires the building and operating of technically sophisticated upgrader plants requiring a lot of capital and labor. Because Canadian capital isn't being generated to build these plants, raw bitumen is being shipped to the USA, where it is being upgraded to synthetic crude oil. Since bitumen sells on average for 60% of the price of crude oil, we are losing $40 per barrel of added value on the 625,000 barrels of bitumen that we are exporting every day. If we upgraded this bitumen in Alberta, $25 million per day, or $9 billion per year, would be added to our economy. Otherwise, it will be lost to the USA. If the Keystone XL pipeline is built to export 1 million barrels per day of bitumen, we will lose another $40 million per day, or $15 billion per year. Building and operating the required upgraders would provide thousands of jobs for Albertans and billions of dollars of additional revenue for the Alberta government that could be used to provide for our social needs, such as health care and education. If the current trend of exporting 40% of our bitumen production is continued through the life of our oil sands, we would lose $24 trillion in added value. Because Canadian capital isn't being generated to build these plants, more and more of the rights to develop and profit from the oil sands are being given to foreign investors. Currently, 55% of the Canadian oil and gas industry is owned by foreigners and is increasing without control. If the current ownership percentage and profit margin of the oil sands companies were projected through the life of the resource, we would ship an additional $12 trillion to foreigners. In total, we could lose $36 trillion that could have benefited us, our children, grandchildren, and their grand descendants. Now this is the case at $100 per barrel. The oil price reached $147 per barrel and will undoubtedly reach this level again. Analysts are predicting that it will go over $200. So our loss could be doubled. Petroleum analysts claim that with current technology, only 10% of the bitumen can be recovered from the oil sands. If this is true, I wonder why we don't wait until the technology is improved to get us a percentage much closer to 100. But even if we should only recover 10% of the bitumen in the oil sands, we would still lose $3.6 trillion by not upgrading all of it in Alberta. Is this loss of our wealth inevitable? No. If we Albertans take control of our credits, such as the oil sands, from the multinational companies and banks, the resulting wealth will provide for our social needs such as health care, education, senior support, communication, transportation, energy, shelter, and food. That's social credit. Upgrading bitumen in Alberta could add $24 billion a year to our economy in the near future and much more in the long term. Building and operating the required upgraders would provide thousands of jobs for Albertans and billions of dollars of additional revenue for the Alberta government that could be used to provide for our social needs such as health care and education. The government must legislate a policy that would require all bitumen produced from our oil sands to be upgraded to synthetic crude oil in Alberta. Oil sands licenses should only be given to companies that include upgrading in Alberta as part of their development process. Companies that currently do not have access to upgrading facilities in Alberta should be required to do so within the next 5 years. The Alberta Bitumen Upgrading Company should be established. This company would be modeled along the lines of the Alberta Gas Trunkline Company established by the Social Credit Government in 1954. Bitumen producing companies that don't have the expertise, capital, or desire to be in the upgrading business would be invited to invest in this company. Albertans would be given first choice to buy shares. The Alberta government would also be a shareholder. Additional funding would be loaned by the Alberta Treasury Branch. In order to distribute engineering, construction, and operation jobs across Alberta, at least one bitumen upgrading plant would be built near each of Fort McMurray, Grand Prairie, Edmonton, Red Deer, Calgary, and Lethbridge. In summary, Albertans are the owners of the oil sands with a current value of $150 trillion. That's $40 million for each of the 3.8 million Albertans. If we don't force our government to get full value for these resources, we could lose $36 trillion. That means by not acting, we would each be responsible for the loss of nearly $10 million. This is not the legacy we want to leave to our children, grandchildren, and their descendants. So let's get after our MLAs to legislate policy that will get full value for our resources. And if they don't, then let's elect MLAs that will. It's about our money. Don't wait. Act now to stop the leakage of our wealth. Remember, we are losing $25 million every day. And if the Keystone Bitumen Pipeline is built, we will lose a total of $65 million per day. Give me a call at 1-888-SOCRED1 or send an email to leader@socialcredit.com. Visit our website at www.socialcredit.com. Come and join us in future bitumen upgrading rallies. Join the Alberta Social Credit Party and work to elect MLAs that will promote the upgrading of bitumen in Alberta. Help us recruit candidates and build constituency associations to support these candidates. Raise funds for the coming election campaign by canvassing individuals and Alberta-owned businesses. We do not solicit from the large multinational corporations, for in order to stand up to them, we cannot become committed to them, as are the PC, Liberal, and Wild Rose Alliance parties. It will be a trying task, but the goal is well worth the effort. I look forward to hearing from you soon.